She thought helping a silent boy was just another act of kindness until a stranger's arrival revealed a secret that would change her life forever. Emma worked at a small diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where the smell of coffee never really left the air. She had been working there for almost 3 years, ever since she dropped out of college to take care of her sick mother. Every day looked almost the same: morning rush, spilled coffee, laughter from regulars, and the sound of plates clinking together. But one cold morning, something changed. That was the day she first saw the silent boy. He couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old. He came in quietly, his shoes a little too big, his clothes clean but worn. He always carried a small backpack and a sketchbook clutched tightly in his hands. He didn't speak a word, not even to order. He just pointed at the menu, then went to sit by the window in the corner booth, the same spot every time at first. Emma didn't think much of it. Many kids came in with their parents or grandparents. But this boy was different. He always came alone in the mornings, just before the real rush started. Sometimes he ordered pancakes. Sometimes just a hot chocolate. And every time he sat there silently, flipping open his sketchbook and starting to draw, Emma noticed that he didn't smile. Not once. His eyes were big and full of something she couldn't quite name. Sadness, maybe, or fear. She watched him from behind the counter as she poured coffee for other customers. He drew carefully, as if the lines on the paper were the only thing holding his world together. The next day he came again, and the next. After a week, he was part of her morning routine. When she saw him walk through the door, she already had his cocoa warming up. She'd place it in front of him with a little smile and say, "Good morning, kiddo," would nod politely but never say a word. Then he would pull out his pencil and start sketching again. Emma found herself curious about him. She wondered where his parents were, why he never spoke, and why he always looked so serious for such a young boy. She asked one of the other waitresses, but nobody seemed to know much. "He's quiet," one of them said. "Comes here often. Probably from that small housing block near the river." One morning, as she cleaned his table after he left, Emma noticed a small drawing tucked under his cocoa cup. It showed the diner, her diner, perfectly sketched, with tiny details like the napkin holder and the old jukebox in the corner. But what caught her attention was the way he had drawn her. There she was, smiling behind the counter, holding a coffee pot. She looked kind, warm, alive. The drawing made her eyes sting a little. She folded it carefully and put it in her apron pocket. The next day, she tried talking to him again. "You draw really well," she said softly, as she placed his cocoa on the table. "That picture of the diner, it's beautiful." He looked up at her, startled, then quickly looked back down. His fingers tightened around his pencil. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't respond at all. Then, slowly, he turned the page and began to draw again. This time, when he was done, he pushed the sketchbook toward her. It was a picture of a small boy sitting alone in a booth. Above him, she was drawn again, bringing him cocoa. Emma's throat tightened. "Is this you?" she asked gently. The boy hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. "It's lovely," she whispered. He didn't reply, but for the first time, she thought she saw something in his eyes, a small spark, faint but real. Days went by, and the quiet routine continued. The boy kept coming, always at the same time. Sometimes Emma caught him watching her from the corner of his eye. Whenever she smiled at him, he'd quickly look away. But there was a little less sadness in his face. One afternoon, when the diner was nearly empty, a woman rushed in, her hair messy, her uniform dusty. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "Liam," she called softly, spotting the boy in the corner. So his name was Liam. She walked up to the counter to pay for his food, her hands trembling slightly as she searched through her purse. "Sorry," she told Emma. "He likes to come here. I work mornings at the factory, so I let him sit here before school. He doesn't talk much, but he's a good boy." Emma smiled kindly. "He's a sweetheart," she said. "Quiet, but polite." The woman nodded. "He's been through a lot," she murmured. "Since his dad?" Her voice cracked, and she didn't finish the sentence. She just gave a tired smile and left with Liam. who waved shyly before disappearing out the door. That night, Emma couldn't stop thinking about them. The boy, his mother, their quiet sadness. She knew what it felt like to carry a heavy heart. Her own mother had passed away the year before, and the diner had been her only escape from the silence of home. Maybe that was why she felt drawn to Leon, because she saw something familiar in his silence. The next morning, she made a small change. She took one of the napkins and wrote a little note on it before placing it under Liam's cocoa cup. It said, "You're doing great. Keep drawing, okay?" When he found it, his eyebrows lifted slightly. He looked around, then glanced up at her. She pretended not to notice. But inside, she felt a small warmth spread through her chest. After that, it became their secret game. Each morning, she'd write something small, sometimes a word, sometimes a smiley face, and leave it for him. And each time, he'd leave her a new drawing. Once, he drew a picture of her, giving him wings. Another time, he drew the sunrise outside the diner window, with the words, "Thank you," scribbled faintly in the corner. Even though they didn't speak, Emma felt they were having conversations, ones made of pencil lines and napkin notes. She looked forward to those quiet exchanges more than anything else in her day. The regular customers began to notice too. "That little artist sure likes you," said Mr. Jenkins, one of the old truckers who always sat at the counter. Emma just smiled. "He's a special kid," she replied. She started to save all his drawings, keeping them in a small envelope at home. Whenever she felt lonely, she'd look at them and remember his shy smile. The way his eyes softened whenever she set his cocoa down. One morning, it was snowing heavily outside, and Emma worried he wouldn't come. But just as she was wiping down the counter, the door opened, and there he was covered in snow. Shivering but smiling slightly, she hurried to get him warm cocoa and a seat near the heater. "You're brave for coming out in this weather," she teased softly. He just smiled a little and drew a picture of the snowflakes falling outside the diner window as she watched him draw. Emma realized how much this quiet boy had become part of her life. She didn't know it then, but this simple kindness, the cocoa, the napkins, the smiles, would soon change everything. For now, though, she was just happy to see a bit of light returning to his world. And maybe, without knowing it, he had brought some back into hers too. Days passed, and Liam kept coming to the diner every morning just like before. But now, something small had changed between him and Emma. He still didn't speak, but there was a quiet friendship growing between them, a bond made of drawings, napkin notes, and warm cups of cocoa. Emma started to look forward to his visits more than anything else. The sound of the doorbell ringing and the sight of his small figure walking in made her smile every single time. Sometimes she was tired from long shifts or worried about paying bills. But when Liam sat at his usual corner and started sketching, her worries softened for a while. His little world of drawings made her forget about her own struggles. He drew everything: the diner, the people who came in, the birds outside the window, and his art kept getting better every day. One morning while refilling his cocoa, Emma asked softly, "Do you draw at home too?" She knew he wouldn't answer, but she asked anyway. Liam looked up for a second, hesitated, then shook his head. He pointed at the diner window and then at his sketchbook, as if to say this was the place that made him want to draw. That tiny gesture made Emma's heart ache and smile at the same time. After that day, Emma started bringing him small things to help him draw better, like sharper pencils, colored pens, or paper she bought from the dollar store. Liam always accepted them quietly, but with grateful eyes. Once, he drew her a picture of a big heart made out of crayons and handed it to her before leaving. It was simple, but she kept it safe in her apron pocket all day. The more Emma learned about him, the more she realized how much pain was hidden behind his silence. His mother, Sarah, sometimes came to pick him up, her face pale and tired. She always thanked Emma for looking after him and told her he didn't have many friends at school. "He's been quiet ever since his father's accident," Sarah said once in a low voice. "He used to laugh all the time before that." Then she gave a sad smile and added, "Now he only draws." Emma wanted to say something comforting, but the words didn't come. All she could do was promise herself that she would make sure Liam felt safe and happy, at least for the time he spent at the diner. so she made small efforts every day. She started making funny faces when she brought his order. Once, she spilled cocoa on her own apron and pretended to be shocked. Liam giggled quietly, and the sound surprised both of them. It was soft and short, but it was the first time she'd ever heard him laugh. After that, he began smiling more often. Not wide-open smiles, but little ones, just enough to show she was making a difference. And every time he smiled, Emma felt a small warmth in her chest that made all her long hours and tired feet worth it. One snowy morning, Liam came in later than usual. Emma noticed he looked sadder than before. His eyes were red, and he didn't start drawing right away. Instead, he just sat there, staring out the window. She walked over quietly and placed a plate of pancakes in front of him, even though he hadn't ordered them. "On the house," she said with a wink. "You look like you need something sweet today." He looked up at her and blinked fast, like he was holding back tears. Then, slowly, he pulled out his pencil and drew something. When he turned the sketchbook around, Emma's breath caught. It was a picture of a man tall, wearing a hard hat, standing next to a little boy. Above them, he had drawn a bright sun and blue sky, but the man's outline faded halfway, almost like he was disappearing. Emma understood immediately. It was his father. Her heart broke a little, seeing that drawing. She didn't say anything, just placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "He looks kind," she whispered. Liam nodded slightly, his eyes still fixed on the paper. For the next few days, she noticed that Liam's drawings were all about his dad. Some were of happy moments, playing with a ball, fixing something, eating dinner. Others were quiet, sad pictures of empty chairs or shadows. Emma didn't know how to help, but she knew she couldn't ignore it. So she kept leaving her little napkin notes. "Your dad must be proud of you. You draw memories beautifully. It's okay to miss someone." Little by little, she saw a change. Liam started drawing brighter things again, birds, sunshine, even the people in the diner smiling. He began humming softly while sketching, tiny tunes that Emma didn't recognize. One day she caught him tapping his pencil to the rhythm of the jukebox music. It was a small thing, but to her, it felt huge. Word about the silent artist started to spread among regular customers. Some people began leaving him small art supplies or buying his pancakes. The cook, Joe, even made a pancake shaped like a heart once, just to see if it would make him smile, and it did. Everyone in the diner seemed to care for him in some small way, but it was Emma who meant the most to him. She had become his safe place. One Saturday, Emma decided to give him something special. After her shift, she went to a small art store across town and bought a real sketchbook with thick white pages and a set of colored pencils. She spent half of her week's tips on it, but didn't care. The next morning, when Liam came in, she placed it on his table before his cocoa. "For you," she said softly, "so you can draw more colors." For a moment, Liam just stared at it, unsure if he should touch it. Then, slowly, he opened the cover. The first page was blank, but Emma had written something on it in neat letters. "Every picture tells a story. I can't wait to see yours." Liam smiled shyly and looked up at her. His lips moved just a little, and for the first time he whispered a word so quiet she almost missed it. "Thanks." It was only one word, but Emma felt tears sting her eyes. That tiny word meant more than anything else she had heard in months. After that day, Liam seemed more open, more alive. He started using colors, mixing them in ways that showed how he felt. Sometimes he drew pictures of her serving food, sometimes of his mom smiling. He even drew a picture of himself laughing, sight she hadn't yet seen in real life, but she knew it was coming. One morning, when she was serving a group of noisy truckers, she noticed Liam showing his drawings to another kid who had come in with his family. He wasn't talking, but he was pointing and smiling as the other boy nodded in awe. It was a small step, but for Emma, it felt like a miracle. Every napkin note, every cup of cocoa, every gentle smile, it all added up. Emma didn't have much money. She didn't have fame or luxury, but she had something powerful, the ability to care. She didn't do it expecting anything in return. She just wanted to see him happy again, to see light in his eyes, and slowly, day by day, her kindness started to heal something inside him. The boy who once sat in silence was now learning to see beauty in the world again. He still didn't talk much, but he no longer looked lost. His drawings told stories now, stories full of hope, warmth, and love. Emma didn't realize it yet. But what she was doing for that one quiet boy was about to ripple far beyond the diner's walls. Her kindness had set something in motion, something that would soon change her life forever. It was a chilly afternoon, and the diner was busier than usual. The doorbell kept ringing as people came in to escape the cold. Emma moved quickly from table to table, her hands full of plates, coffee mugs, and napkins. Even though her feet ached and her back hurt, she kept her usual cheerful smile. That day felt like any other until a stranger walked in. He wasn't like the regular customers. He looked different, out of place in the small-town diner. He was tall, wearing a dark coat that looked expensive, and his shoes were polished so well they reflected the light. His hair had a few strands of gray, but his face was calm and serious. The kind of face that made people look twice. He quietly sat down at the booth near the window. Just 2 tables away from where Liam usually sat, Emma noticed him right away, but didn't think too much of it. She grabbed a menu and walked over with her usual friendly tone. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you today?" she asked. The man smiled politely but didn't look up immediately. "Just coffee, please. Black." His voice was deep and steady, the kind of voice that carried quiet confidence. She nodded and went to pour him a fresh cup as she placed the coffee in front of him. She noticed something: he wasn't looking at the menu or the people talking around him. His gaze was fixed on Liam, who was sitting in his usual corner, completely focused on his sketchbook. The man watched him quietly, not in a strange way, but with deep thought in his eyes. Emma followed his gaze for a moment, then smiled softly. "That's Liam," she said. "He's here almost every morning." The man looked at her a little surprised. "You know him?" "Kind of," she replied. "He doesn't talk much, but he draws beautifully. I think he's got a big heart, even if he doesn't show it with words." The man nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "He's very talented," he said quietly. Still watching Liam draw. Emma didn't want to disturb him further, so she went back to her work. But every now and then, she noticed him still glancing toward the boy. Something about his eyes told her there was more to his interest than simple curiosity. Liam, meanwhile, didn't seem to notice the man watching him. He was busy sketching, his small hands moving quickly over the paper. He had started a new picture of the diner, this time with the snow falling outside the windows. Emma smiled as she passed by and saw her tiny figure drawn behind the counter again. She thought he must see her as part of the diner itself, someone who belonged there, like the coffee smell or the old jukebox. After a while, the man finished his coffee, but instead of leaving, he ordered lunch: a sandwich and soup. He sat quietly, eating slowly while watching everything around him. He seemed thoughtful, almost distant, like someone lost in memories. When Emma brought him the check, reached into his wallet, and handed her a crisp $100 bill. The meal had only cost $12. Double quotes. "Oh, sir, I think you gave me the wrong bill," Emma said quickly. He smiled faintly. "No mistake," he said. "Keep the change." Her eyes widened. That's too much." "I can't." "You can," he interrupted gently. "You've earned it." Then he stood up, put on his coat, and looked toward Liam one last time before walking out into the cold. Emma stood there for a moment, holding the bill in disbelief. She'd never received such a tip in her life. The cook, Joe, whistled from behind the counter. "Lucky you, Em." "Maybe he liked your smile," he teased. But Emma didn't laugh. She kept thinking about the way the man had looked at Liam, the softness in his eyes. It wasn't just kindness. It was something else, something personal later that day. When Liam's mother came to pick him up, Emma asked carefully, "Do you know if Liam has any other family? Like uncles or relatives?" Sarah looked puzzled. "No, not that I know of. His father's side of the family, they were never around much." "Why?" Emma hesitated, not wanting to sound strange. "Oh, just curious," she said. "There was a man here earlier. He seemed interested in Liam, not in a bad way, just thoughtful." Sarah frowned slightly, but didn't say anything more. She thanked Emma, took Liam's hand and left. That night, Emma couldn't stop thinking about it. Who was that man? Why had he looked at Liam like that? Why had he left such a huge tip? She didn't know it yet, but that meeting was about to change everything. The next morning, the diner was quiet again. The snow outside had turned into soft rain. Emma was wiping down the counter when a delivery man walked in, holding a large envelope. "Are you Emma Brooks?" he asked. She nodded, confused. "Yes, that's me." He handed her the envelope. "This is for you," he said. "For Mr. Cole." Then he left. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a letter written in neat handwriting and a business card that read Daniel Cole, Cole Industries. Her heart skipped a beat. She'd heard that name before. Daniel Cole was a billionaire who had grown up in their state but hadn't been seen around in years. People said he owned half the buildings downtown. The letter was short. "Dear Emma, thank you for your kindness to the boy at the diner. I was deeply moved watching how you treated him with such care and patience. Most people would not notice a child like him, but you did. You reminded me that kindness still exists in quiet corners of the world. I would like to meet you again soon. Daniel Cole." Emma stared at the letter, her heart racing. The boy at the diner? He meant Liam. The man must have known him somehow. But how? She slipped the letter back into the envelope and hid it in her apron. Her mind was full of questions. Later that day, when Liam came in, she looked at him differently. Who exactly was he to that man? That evening, after closing time, the same man came back. The bell over the door jingled softly as he entered. The diner was almost empty now. Emma looked up, surprised but not scared. "Mr. Cole," she said, recognizing him from the name on the letter. "You came back," he nodded. "I did." He walked up to the counter and placed a folded photograph in front of her. "That's my nephew," he said quietly. Emma looked down. It was a picture of Liam smiling, maybe 5 years old, sitting on a man's shoulders. The man next to him was the same one she'd seen drawn in Liam's sketch, the one with the hard hat. Emma gasped softly. "You're his uncle?" Daniel nodded, his face calm but full of emotion. "I hadn't seen him in years. My brother and I? We lost touch after some disagreements. When I heard about the accident, I tried to reach out, but his mother didn't want my help. She thought money couldn't fix things. Maybe she was right." He sighed deeply, then looked at Emma with sincere eyes. "I came here today because I wanted to see him. I didn't know how he was doing. But then I saw how you treated him with such warmth and kindness. You reminded me of what family should mean." Emma didn't know what to say. Her throat felt tight. She had never imagined that the quiet boy she served cocoa to every morning had a billionaire uncle. Daniel smiled faintly. "I'd like to do something for you," he said. "Not out of charity, but gratitude." Before she could answer, he placed another envelope on the counter. "Consider it a thank you," he said, then turned and walked out once again into the cold. When Emma opened the envelope later, she found a note and a check inside. The check was written in her name, for an amount so large it made her hands shake. But the note meant even more. It said, "Kindness like yours deserves to grow. Let this help you chase your dreams." Emma stood there in the quiet diner, holding the letter with tears in her eyes. She looked toward the corner booth where Liam always sat and smiled softly. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: everything was about to change. A few days after the mysterious encounter with Daniel Cole, Emma's life began to feel different, though she wasn't sure why at first. The diner smelled the same. The morning coffee steamed in its usual mugs. The regular customers still joked and laughed over pancakes. Yet there was a quiet excitement in the air, a sense that something important was about to happen. Emma found herself thinking about the letter and the envelope more often than she should. Every time she looked at it, she felt a mixture of hope and disbelief. How could someone so wealthy, someone so powerful, care about the quiet boy at her diner, or even notice her? She arrived at the diner that morning, tired as usual, her feet sore from standing all night at her part-time job, but ready to face her routine. Liam came in as usual, his backpack slung over one shoulder, a sketchbook clutched in his small hands. He smiled faintly as he noticed her. the warmth in his eyes reflecting trust and familiarity. Emma had grown so fond of him. He was no longer just a shy, silent boy in the corner. He was her friend, someone she cared for deeply. Even if she didn't fully understand why he'd become such an important part of her life, as she poured his hot chocolate, she noticed movement in the doorway. Her heart skipped a beat. It was Daniel Cole. He walked in calmly, confidently, like someone who belonged there. Even though she knew he didn't, the chatter of the few customers in the diner seemed to fade as he approached the counter. His presence was commanding, yet gentle. It's like a quiet storm that could change everything around it. "Emma," he said, his voice steady but warm. "Thank you for meeting me." She nodded, unsure if her mouth would form words. She had never spoken to someone so important in her entire life, let alone in such a personal situation. "Mr. Cole." "It's okay," she managed to say. He smiled faintly. "Call me Daniel," he said simply. There was a softness in his eyes now, kindness that made her feel as if she had known him longer than she had. He gestured toward a small booth by the window. "Shall we sit?" Emma hesitated for a moment but then followed. She wasn't sure what this meeting would bring, but something told her it was important. Once seated, Daniel began speaking about Liam, his nephew. Emma listened closely, absorbing every word. He explained how he had lost contact with his brother years ago, and how he had only recently learned about Liam's struggles since the father's accident. His voice carried no anger or resentment, only concern, and a deep sense of responsibility that Emma could feel even from across the table. "I saw how you treated him," Daniel said quietly. "The patience, the kindness, the way you helped him without asking for anything in return. It moved me more than I can explain. Most adults would ignore a child like him, but you didn't. You became his safe place. You reminded me what family and care truly mean." Emma felt her throat tighten. She had never expected recognition from someone like him. She had only ever wanted to help Liam because she knew what it felt like to feel invisible and alone. I just wanted him to feel safe," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "And you succeeded. That's why I'm here. I want to make sure he gets the help he needs. And I want to do something for you too. Not charity, not pity, but because you've earned it." Emma's hand shook slightly as he slid a small folder across the table. She opened it to find papers that included a scholarship offer, funds for her education, and an opportunity to pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. Tears welled up in her eyes. She'd wanted this for years, but it had always seemed impossible. Her part-time job, her bills, her responsibilities, everything had held her back. And now, just like that, the door had opened. I don't know what to say," Emma stammered. "Say you'll accept it," Daniel said with a faint smile. "Say you'll keep helping Liam. Say you'll keep being kind. That's all that matters to me." The relief, joy, and disbelief overwhelmed her. She couldn't imagine how her life had shifted so quickly. But deep down she knew it wasn't luck. It was the result of years of small, consistent acts of kindness. She had cared every day in ways no one else noticed. And now, those small gestures had changed everything. Daniel then spoke about Liam's future. He wanted to provide therapy, educational opportunities, and support so that Liam could heal from his father's death. He explained that he had resources and connections to ensure Liam had everything he needed to feel safe, confident, and happy again. Emma realized, listening to Daniel, that her quiet mornings with Liam, the cocoa, the napkin notes, the sketches had made him the boy he was today, resilient, thoughtful, and full of creativity. She smiled softly, remembering the first day she had noticed him sitting silently in the corner booth. It felt like a lifetime ago. The boy who once never spoke, who only drew shadows and memories of sadness, had slowly started opening up under her care. And now, with Daniel's support, he could finally thrive. Emma's thoughts drifted to the letters she had kept from Liam. She pulled out the sketchbooks she had saved. Flipping through them slowly, every drawing told a story, some of sadness, some of hope, some of laughter. She realized that each one had been a message, a conversation, a connection that neither of them fully understood at the time. Daniel noticed her looking through the sketches and nodded. "He has a remarkable gift," he said. "And so do you. You have the ability to see the potential in someone, to nurture it without expecting anything in return. That's rare. That's precious." Emma felt a warmth in her chest. For so long, she had doubted herself, doubted her place in the world, doubted whether she could ever do something meaningful. Now, sitting across from a man she had only known as an observer of her actions, she felt seen. Truly seen, the conversation turned to practical matters. Daniel explained how he would arrange for Liam's therapy sessions, introduce him to a new school with supportive teachers, and provide a stable environment where he could continue to grow and express himself through art. Emma listened carefully, taking mental notes, realizing how much planning and care went into this. She had never imagined her small efforts could be part of such a larger plan. Before leaving, Daniel handed her one last envelope. "Keep this," he said. "For you, when you need a reminder that kindness never goes unnoticed." Emma opened it to find another generous check, this one meant for emergencies or personal needs. She felt tears fall freely now, unable to stop herself. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel gave her a gentle nod. "No, thank you. And remember, Emma, this is just the beginning." He stood, adjusted his coat, and left the diner as quietly as he had entered, leaving behind a sense of hope that seemed almost tangible. For the rest of the day, Emma moved through the diner in a dreamlike state. Customers ordered their meals, coffee steamed from the pots, and the jukebox played softly in the corner, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought about Liam, about the boy she had watched grow quietly in her diner, about the first sketch of her that he had given her, and she thought about her own future, suddenly full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. That evening, after closing, she looked around the empty diner and smiled. Liam's sketches sat in neat stacks on the counter, evidence of a journey that had started with simple gestures of kindness. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, realizing that every small action, every smile, every cup of cocoa, every encouraging napkin note had led to this moment. Emma knew her life would never be the same. She had been given an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to help a child heal from his pain. And as she locked the doors for the night, she felt a quiet but profound excitement for the future. She had seen the power of kindness, and now she was part of something bigger, a story that would continue to unfold, bringing hope, love, and change in ways she had never imagined, for the first time in a long time. Emma went home feeling light, feeling hopeful, feeling that maybe, just maybe, the world could be a little brighter because of the choices she had made and the courage she had shown in caring for a silent boy who had touched her heart more than she could have ever known. The diner felt warmer that morning, though. The wind outside blew icy cold. Emma had arrived early as usual, but this time something was different. She moved around the counter with a lighter step, a quiet joy filling her chest. The scholarship and support Daniel Cole had offered had started the process of changing her life. She had begun part-time courses in education, studying to become a teacher, something she had dreamed about for years but never thought possible. And yet, the most important change wasn't just in her future, it was in the boy she had cared for every morning. Liam walked in as usual, his sketchbook in hand, though now there was a visible brightness in his eyes. He smiled faintly at her as she set a steaming cup of cocoa in front of him. Over the past few months, his laughter had grown more frequent, though still soft and shy. He had started humming tunes while drawing, little melodies that filled the diner with a sense of life and hope. Emma watched him quietly from behind the counter, marveling at the transformation. The boy who had once been silent, withdrawn, and sorrowful now radiated small bursts of joy and curiosity. It wasn't just the laughter or the smiles that had changed Emma. Liam had become more expressive in his drawings. His art was no longer filled with lonely shadows or fading figures. He drew sunny skies, playful animals, and people holding hands. One day he even drew a picture of Emma behind the counter, holding a tray of pancakes, but this time he added a tiny halo of sunshine around her. When Emma saw it, she couldn't help but laugh softly, tears threatening to spill. She realized that the boy's world had opened up, and somehow She had helped him find that light. One afternoon, while Emma was helping Liam with a new set of colored pencils, a sleek black car pulled up outside the diner. She glanced out the window, surprised, and saw Daniel Cole stepping out. He walked with calm confidence, yet his eyes had the warmth she remembered. He entered the diner and greeted her with a smile. "Good afternoon, Emma," he said. "May I see Liam for a moment?" Emma nodded, a little nervous. Liam looked up at her, then at Daniel, his eyes wide with curiosity. Daniel knelt down slightly so he could meet Liam at eye level. "Hello, Liam," he said softly. "How are you today?" Liam blinked and smiled, pointing to his sketchbook. He handed Daniel a drawing he had made just that morning. It was a picture of the diner filled with people laughing and enjoying their meals. And in the corner, there was a small boy with a bright smile. Emma could see Liam had drawn himself there, next to her. Holding a steaming cup of cocoa, Daniel examined the drawing closely, a rare smile spreading across his face. "This is wonderful," he said gently. "You have an amazing gift, Liam. Your drawings tell stories no one else can." Liam's cheeks flushed, and he looked down shyly, but Emma noticed something magical. The boy had grown more confident, more open to the world around him. Daniel handed him a small envelope. "This is for you," he said. "A little something to help you explore your art even more." Liam opened the envelope carefully. Inside were tickets to an art workshop and a set of professional drawing tools. His eyes sparkled, and for the first time, he whispered a word loud enough for Emma to hear. "Thank you." It wasn't just the word, it was the feeling behind it. The gratitude and trust that had been building slowly over months. Emma watched this exchange with a quiet sense of pride and wonder. She had never imagined that her small acts of kindness, offering cocoa, leaving napkin notes, encouraging him with gentle words, would lead to this moment. She realized that compassion and patience could truly change lives, even in ways that seemed impossible at first. As the weeks passed, Liam continued to thrive. His laughter became more frequent, and he began to speak more often, softly at first, and then in longer sentences. Emma made it a habit to encourage him whenever she could. "You're doing great," she would say, smiling as he drew or spoke. And each time he would nod, a small spark of pride in his eyes. Meanwhile, Emma's life was transforming as well. She had enrolled in a teacher training program and was attending classes part-time while continuing to work at the diner. The scholarship Daniel had provided took care of her tuition and books, lifting a burden that had weighed on her for years. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, a feeling that she was finally moving toward the life she had always wanted. One evening, after a long day of classes and work, Emma stayed behind at the diner to tidy up. Liam was there as well, sketching quietly at his usual corner booth. The diner was empty except for them, the lights warm and soft. Emma watched him draw, and she noticed that he had started including more people in his sketches. Friends, even strangers, he noticed on the street. He was beginning to see the world as a place full of connections, not just shadows of loss. Daniel walked in quietly, not wanting to disturb them. He watched Emma and Liam interact, the bond between them evident in every glance and gesture. He could see how much Emma had influenced Liam's growth, how her patience, kindness, care had given him the confidence to start opening up again. After a few minutes, Daniel approached the counter. "Emma," he said softly, "I wanted to thank you again. What you've done for Liam, it's more than anyone could ask for. You've helped him heal, and in doing so, you've shown me what true compassion looks like." Emma smiled, feeling tears prick her eyes. "I didn't do much," she whispered. "I just tried to be there for him." Daniel shook his head. "You did more than you realize, and now your life can grow in ways you've dreamed of. You deserve it." From that day on, things seemed brighter, lighter. Liam continued to attend the art workshop, and Emma's studies flourished. She often shared stories with her classmates about a quiet, artistic boy who had taught her more about patience, empathy, and hope than any lesson ever could. And every morning, when she returned to the diner, she was greeted with his small, shy smile, reminding her that the work they had done together, small gestures of kindness, patient encouragement, and care, had created something lasting. Months later, the diner was bustling as usual. Regular customers laughed and joked. The smell of coffee filled the air, and the jukebox played soft tunes in the background. Liam sat at his corner booth, sketching a scene of people enjoying breakfast. His lines were confident, his colors bright. Emma placed a cup of cocoa in front of him, and he looked up, grinning widely. "Thanks," he said, and for the first time his voice carried joy, not hesitation. Daniel Cole came in later that day, quietly observing from a distance. He smiled as he saw Liam laughing softly with Emma. The boy had grown, not just in skill but in heart, and Emma had been the reason. The bond they shared, the trust, and the care had allowed both their lives to flourish. Emma felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had helped a child find his voice and had discovered her own potential in the process. She knew that kindness, patience, and love were more powerful than she had ever imagined. And as she looked around the diner, watching the sunlight reflect off the windows, the steaming cups, and the laughter filling the room, she realized that this small corner of the world had become a place of hope, growth, and happiness, not just for Liam, but for herself too, from that day forward. Mornings at the diner were no longer routine. They were filled with promise, laughter, art, and learning. Liam's voice grew stronger, his smile brighter, and Emma's dreams became reality. The quiet boy who had once been lost in shadows now radiated light, and the young woman who had once struggled to find her path now walked confidently toward a future she had only dreamed of. Their lives were forever intertwined, two journeys that began in quiet gestures and small kindnesses, now blossoming into a story of hope, healing, and a future full of endless possibilities. Emma knew that this was only the beginning, and together they would continue to create, to grow, to show the world the power of care, love, and compassion.